Title Update 3 is here, and with it we have the Final Fantasy XIV Special Collab, giving us the fantastic raid-like hunt up against Omega Planetis in Monster Hunter Wilds. The fight is super tough, especially the Savage version, but even the standard one is very difficult. After slamming my head against it repeatedly for 10 hours after it launched, I've put together 12 tips, 12-ish at least, some of them are sort of repeats, to help you get through the Omega fight with as much ease as possible, but I'm not gonna lie, it's still tough either way. The first of which we're going to jump right into over here, your build going into the fight. There's always been this weird theme within the Monster Hunter community to constantly go for hyper-aggressive, super damaging, super offensive builds with little to no comfort or defensive skills. That's great if you're speedrunning and you can beat the game without taking a single hit blindfolded, but for everyone else it's not always practical. For example, I really like taking a build with 4 pieces of Zoshia and the Guardian Arcveld Vambraces, with which I can get 5 weakness exploit, 5 agitator, 3 maximum might, and very importantly, it will give me super recovery too, which will give me constant HP regeneration. Alongside one of my god roll RNG charms, I've been able to get a whole host of defensive skills added in too, such as 3 recovery up, which works so nicely with super recovery too, 2 divine blessing on top of the food buff I like to take, which also gives me the divine blessing effect. And also, which I have created as its own separate tip because it is so important, I have taken 3 stun resist. This is on my god roll charm, but you can find space for it somewhere in the build instead, via your own RNG talismans or whatever. Getting stunned during this fight will contribute to so many of your cards, feints that you would have otherwise avoided had you not been stunned at all, which is precisely what 3 stun resistance will bestow upon you. You will be immune to stuns. There is so much stun buildup off so many of its attacks, some of which feel like they have a 100% chance to stun you if you get caught in them, like his big laser beam, a bunch of the missiles. You just don't have to worry about it at all, you are free from stuns. Tip number 3 is one that might surprise you. It is somewhat counterintuitive and maybe counter to what you have seen so far, but if you are struggling to get the win in online play in multiplayer, which this hunt is designed for, try instead to use the NPC support hunters, who are absolutely fantastic and have received some really nice buffs recently. In the quest settings, turn the multiplayer to support hunters only. You can turn on auto SOS so you don't need to manually fire off the SOS, they'll just start the hunt with you, and go out of your way to select which support hunters you want, the main one being Alyssa, who will play the lance and act as your tank, taking and holding enmity from Omega throughout the whole fight, allowing you and your squad to just focus on dealing damage and avoiding attacks. Not only are they super helpful in their specific roles, they respond to Omega's attacks in really clever ways. They'll hop on their sacred when they're targeted by mustard bombs and drag them well away from everyone else immediately. They'll also actively use their pictomancies, they are so helpful. Very importantly, do not forget that if they go down, they do not count towards your total carts, making sure that so long as you don't cart 3 or 4 times with insurance, you're not going to fail the quest. Tip number 4 is to ensure that you keep up with your pictomancy throughout the fight. When you start the whole FF14 collab quest chain, you will receive the pictomancy item, which you can then equip in your loadout. It doesn't do it automatically, and you'll be able to use it to cast a spell once every 30 seconds, increasing in power each time you do so, with the third one being a very powerful 1000 damage attack. If you can keep on top of using it whenever it's off cooldown, this will just help you dish out so much damage. It's also super useful dealing with the mini Omega explosive bugs, and can take care of all of the rocket launcher fists as well. Whilst you don't need to specifically go out of your way to time your pictomancy spells to deal with these situations, it can be a nice happy coincidence. Tip number 5 probably goes against everything that you have been taught as a hunter and is going to be quite difficult for you to steer away from. For the most part, do not go for the head unless you are explicitly trying to take enmity from Omega. This means leaving it to Alyssa if you're using support hunters and she is your tank, or going for it if you're playing the tank role and you're using a shielded weapon, and or you're trying to get its attention for some reason for like environmental traps or what have you. That doesn't mean never ever go for the head, never take enmity. It's actually very functionally important that someone does have enmity, as various attacks end up targeting everyone instead of one person exclusively if Omega doesn't have a hunter to focus on. Tip number 6 is where you should target then if you're not going for the head. Repeat after me. Front is blunt plus ammo, back is slash. If you're dealing blunt or ammo damage with your weapons, go for the front legs, and if you're dealing slash damage, which many of you will be, go for the back legs. This is just what's most effective. You can of course go for any of the legs, and dealing some damage is always better than dealing none, but just be mindful of these specific weaknesses. Speaking of, it's also very helpful to have Thunder Elemental damage for that extra juice, as Omega is generally weak to Thunder pretty much all over. Not forgetting that this way you will generate more wounds on the legs, which is very helpful for getting more damage out, getting more monster parts, and generally maintaining better control of the fight. Tip number 7 is for all the hunters that use a weapon that gives you a block, which is something that's super helpful to do just in general endgame. Dealing with 8-star monsters, 9-star monsters, forget about Omega. And you don't need to necessarily be performing the tank role here, it's just if you're playing a blocking weapon. By taking at least one level, preferably all 3 of guard up, you will be able to block all of Omega's laser beams, other than the super one during the Nasilla phase. That devastating charge up one that he does whilst floating, you can block that and even stop the beam. Your guard will turn into a stalwart guard, protecting all of your teammates behind you from getting laser beamed. This is absolutely fantastic if you are playing as the tank role, but even if you're not, you can still be targeted by that laser beam attack, holding it in place instead of putting it in the path of your teammates, and all of the other laser beams that Omega fires out. It's very useful to be able to block them if a dodge just isn't on the cards. Tip number 8 is that all of the shields you can use throughout the fight are extremely helpful. Whether it's from the glowing mini explosive Omega bug, you pick up the part that gives you the shield as a slinger ammo, or you break the wound on Omega's head or get the weak point after firing its laser beam, they will protect you from all of the projectile attacks, the laser beams, the missiles, everything. They're great to stand in whilst you're sharpening your weapon or performing pictomancies, and to just generally get off your combos without so much of a worry. They don't prevent damage from the physical attacks Omega does, but it does reduce them. But by far my favorite usage of shields is to sacrifice them to a mustard bomb, which will destroy the shield in one go, but will also prevent the mustard bomb from leaving that devastating fire AoE damage over time. I've also seen my support hunters go out of their way to do this, which was super cool. And yeah, you can do this with the more powerful shield that Nasilla drops, which won't actually destroy it in one go, but will still mitigate a mustard bomb. So shields are really useful. Make sure you always get one from the explosive bug, and then if you got the slinger one, just make sure you fire it off at some point. Don't hold on to it and forget about it. Tip number 9 was just alluded to in the previous tip. If you break a head wound on Omega, it will spawn a shield, and you can also do this by taking advantage of the weak spot that appears after it does its floating laser beam attack. This is super useful to keep in mind when you get the mount, because by prioritizing doing the mount finisher on the back wound, which is much harder to reach for everyone else who's not playing range, you can hold on to that head wound that you've created for an opportune moment to spawn the shield at a later time. That, and it's a more efficient usage of the mount to get more DPS out of it. Saving that head wound for the final phase when Omega goes absolutely crazy with all of his missiles can be super helpful for your survivability. Tip number 10 is to always make use of the crumbling ice wall during the phase in the area where the Nasilla spawns in, to ensure you get a free 3.5k worth of damage and a brief stun to Omega as well, which you will lose the opportunity to do once he leaves this area. That 3.5k damage is when it's adjusted for 4 players, and all of the other falling ice pillars will do around 700 damage. These are all amazing to make use of. Make sure you do so, because it's just free massive chunks of damage and brief stuns as well that help make the fight so much simpler. If you go and grab enmity from Omega, you can quickly head over to where the crumbling ice wall is, lure him over, and either fire your hook slinger and do it yourself, or have one of your teammates do so. Tip number 11 is during the Nasilla phase, it can feel like you are just getting laser beamed and exploded upon from all angles. Something I figured out pretty quickly, which really helped me tackle this phase, is to spend the entire portion of this fight underneath Nasilla as best as possible. This of course is going to be somewhat weapon dependent if you're playing your ranged weapons, but for the most part for most weapons this is solid for everyone to follow. What this allowed me to do was avoid most of the attacks whilst keeping my damage uptime high, because don't forget this is a DPS check that will otherwise wipe your party if you don't make it. Of course, interact with any nearby cactuars and mini Mulberras, dealing damage with 1,000 needles and paralyzing Nasilla for big damage windows, and of course stopping its bloody attacks that will interrupt you, being mindful that Bad Breath will hit and affect you as well, so don't get caught in it, all of which should help you take down the Nasilla in time. And finally, for tip number 12, it's another role that you can assume other than the tank, and of course dealing damage as a DPS, that is super helpful to get through the hunt successfully in one piece. We are of course talking about none other than assuming a support focused role. What this may look like is putting some levels of wide range onto your build, just so that healing items affect others that are nearby you, ensuring you're using the free dusts of life that you're given, taking out more with you as well. But if you're a real Chad, if you're an actual support, there's only one answer really. It honk, it bonk, it support very strong. I'm of course talking about the hunting horn, and there is one specifically that really does tick all of the boxes really nicely. The Rathian Queen Cordmaker hunting horn is absolutely phenomenal. The health recovery smalls are decent, we of course would like them to be bigger, but that's not where it really shines. It's the fact that it has recovery speed large, which is basically a free super recovery that will stack on top of your super recovery from your Zoshia set if you're using it, to help keep you and all of your teammates alive. Your echo bubbles are health regen echo bubbles as well, super useful, and the horn's special melody is the Melody of Life, providing a massive group heal. It is of course imperative that everyone helps out where they can with using Dusts of Life and stuff like that, but by having one of you as a dedicated support with this hunting horn for example, the entire squad is able to focus on dealing damage and isn't penalized so much when they do get caught out here and there. That's everything I've got for you this time. Hopefully with these 12 tips, you will have an easier time facing off against Omega, but do just keep in mind that it's super tough, the standard one as well as the savage one. Give yourself some time and patience to get better at it, you'll get there eventually. If you enjoy this style of video, I like making these sorts of things for Monster Hunter Wilds and other games too. But either way, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the Forbidden Lands.